Hello and welcome to the Nick Lugo Show. Today you are going to experience Wendi Friesen. She has made multi-million dollars off her hypnosis courses. She has been so successful and has been able to change so many lives. All she talks about today is how many lives that she's changed, the miracles that she's performed, and really the power of the subconscious mind. Anything that you learn today will be of value, and I actually promise you that. This is one of those where I will actually promise that to you. So without further ado, there's nothing more that I have to say besides you will absolutely love this. So Wendi Friesen.
Higher level stuff. Like I worked with the traders in San Francisco. I went there every week and I worked with a bunch of the guys that traded in the pits.
Yeah.
Big stressful job.
Oh yeah.
And it was hypnosis. This is what we're doing. We're not, doing little relaxation sessions.
Well, what'd you hypnotize them for? Stress relief, productivity, addiction?
Oh, you will love this because university wise, this is like one of the coolest things that I discovered is making these machines in your brain that, they're like software basically, but they perform functions. So for them, when they don't trade this way anymore, but they used to be in the pits, and in the pits, there's all these guys. And then this broker will come up to the stand and has something that makes you make a bid or an offer. And if you're near the front or if you're louder, you can make your bid or your offer. But first, you have to look at these two TV screens that have rows of numbers with unlike fractions. You have to, as fast as you can, go. And they're changing constantly. It's like 8 1/4, and this one's 6 2/16 or something.
Okay.
You have to get the difference really fast in order to be a good trader. So their speed was not very fast at that. So when they were in the office after their trading day, I made a machine that'll do it for them. And this is so simple, and you can do this with so many things. But I said, okay, close your eyes, relax, blah, blah, blah. You're going to see two circles in your mind, and there are two fields. And in the left circle, put the number 4 and 1/16. And in the number on the right, put 8 and 3/8 or something. Anyway, so and I said, now just below it, there's another circle, and it's going to be green, and the correct answer is going to pop up into that circle that's green. And it would be instant. I mean, the answer would pop up. And we did a whole bunch of these. We just drilled them in, and someone was keeping track of the answers. And then they were correct. There was only one person who got one answer wrong out of all the traders. There was like 5 guys.
Yeah.
And they were right instantly. Their brain couldn't do it consciously.
Huh. So they looked at math and they were just like, okay, number, got it. Like nothing
like that.
Nothing like 4.5 minus 3. Like it's just too much to do constantly.
Right. Wow. And what was interesting is that it was correct. The answers were correct. And when I had one of the guys, I said, here, you grade their answers because I don't want to do that. And he was having trouble just grading them, going, oh, it's so hard to do the math when he had already done them all correctly. Wow. In the rapid fire thing. Yeah. So I have done this for kids and adults for all kinds of study skills. I have a woman who failed the bar exam twice. And so we made a machine in her brain that kept all the parts of the bar exam and connected the parts that needed to talk to each other when she passed the bar exam.
What do you mean? Like, how did they connect?
It was kind of her building on it. So first I said, okay, what are the main components we need for all the information that you have to study for the bar exam? And she'd say, okay, well, there's one for torts. So I said, okay, well, make a little compartment that has a specific color and texture, and that one's for torts. Okay, and what's the next one? And then maybe it was certain decisions or something. And so she had quite a few of these. Okay. And so as she studies now, the information is going to go into each specific category or little house and be stored there. And this is turned into a process that's below your conscious awareness. So then she said, oh, the one that's for torts just drew a line over to the one that's for these kind of court cases because they have something they share. And I said, wow, cool. And so she was just watching this thing get built.
Wow.
And she passed the exam.
Well, I mean, I don't know how much neurology you know, but that's neural networks, like at its core, right? Like,
it is, yeah.
All right, I have like, this is what I do when I'm at home, and this is what I do when I'm at university, and you know, everything's separate, and here are the ideas that I have when I'm at home, and all of these things. That's crazy.
I know, and I've done it for so many purposes. And so anyway, if you go to my new channel at locals.com, there's one that's on the mind machines and how to build them. For kids that have trouble spelling, I build a machine that spells the word. So if I say the word castle, the sound goes in the machine and then it comes out spelled. And I say, what do you see? And they get the words right. Now it's spelled correctly all the time. It's so weird. But this one, the one that was really cool was a third grade Black girl that I had given her a bunch of words. Everything was working fine. And then I said, Africa, and she put it in. And when it came out, she said, doesn't look right. It's Africka. And I said, well, what do you notice? She said, well, all the letters have like giraffe colors, except for the K is black. And she didn't know how to spell. She was a terrible speller, but she had seen Africa with a K in her culture. But her mind knew that it wasn't supposed to be there for our spelling purposes. Wow. And all this math stuff I've built them for. And when we take ourselves away from our conscious, like kind of the effort that we put in consciously to solve some things, we're much better.
Well, that's one of the things that I'm trying to work on in my hypnotherapy practice. I'm essentially realizing that, and this is something that I sort of came up to on my own time, and then hypnotherapy just reinforced it. It's just the fact that motivation, focus, and attention, all of those things are not controlled consciously. Like, I can't control how much motivation I have to, let's say, go to the gym or do work. It just sort of flows through me, you know? And the amount of times that I tried the carrot and stick method, you know, trying to hit myself and punishment and reward and all of these things, it was so frustrating and so, ineffective to the point where I was like, you know what? Okay, let me start trying it by myself. I went the entire long route, and then I get to the end and realize that hypnotherapy is just the perfect way to just take the shortcut.
Well, what I've discovered is that people have mostly pain attached to the things that they want to do. So when you want to motivate yourself, your mind is opening up all these different beliefs about yourself that are like, oh God, it's so hard to motivate myself and I just don't feel like doing it. And I'm, obviously I'm a loser and I'll never go. But it's just all these emotional things open up. So why would you want to do that thing when it feels so negative every time you think about it?
Yeah, and why do we keep reinforcing the fact that work has such a negative connotation?
Yeah.
I'm going to work, it hurts. It hurts. I actually do something in my journal every day where I write and I do how many hours today did I work? And then I have the total, and then how many of it was work as work and how many of it was work as play.
Wow.
And it's nice, because I look back on my day and I'm like, I worked for 4 hours, just like rigorous stuff. And then I did 5 things that were technically work, but I just absolutely loved them. And it's a completely different feeling doing both.
That's nice. Because then your mind focuses partly on the reward for the stuff that feels like play. And so there's something positive attached to it. Yeah. And I would say with addictions, that people just have so much negativity attached to quitting whatever their addiction is. And so it's like just too hard because all the negative stuff comes up and there's nothing positive attached to it.
Okay, so take me through all that. Take me through everything. I guess the podcast already started because we're just going.
That's what I was thinking. You'll just fix it up a little in the beginning.
Exactly. I'm like, we're going with it. But tell me about essentially how people feel about their addictions, how people feel about work, how people feel about Alcoholics Anonymous. Just tell, essentially, in my opinion, the right philosophy.
Yeah. Well, I learned a lot about this because my older son went into rehab several times and it just wasn't working. And he would tell me what's going on in there and how painful it is and how difficult. And it just was a really destructive environment. And there wasn't anything positive. And then they'd tell you how hard it's going to be when you get out and you're going to have to stay away from normies, which are people who drink, and you can't go near any bar or, you can't do any of your same friends. And you have to go to meetings every day where you listen to people tell their sad, sad, sad stories every day.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, if you were an athlete and I told you to go to a meeting every day where people are going to talk about all their sports failures and all the stuff they've done wrong
and how
every
much,
day.
Yeah. And how much they feel like they don't want to work and how unmotivated they feel and how they overcome it.
Yeah. So with addiction, how are you supposed to feel good about quitting whatever drug or alcohol when you have to just listen to all these sad stories and you feel like you don't have a social life unless you hang out with these other AA people? But basically, there's a lot of beliefs about it, like that it is a disease and you will never get over this disease. So that disempowers us.
Yeah.
Constantly, and we believe it, and we have to introduce ourselves as, hi, I'm Virginia, I'm an alcoholic, and you have to introduce yourself that way everywhere. And then the other thing is that you are powerless. I mean, come on.
That's step one.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh God. If you were like you liked ice cream a lot, and I said, well, you're powerless to quit eating ice cream. That wouldn't make any sense,
Well, so what they're doing, right? What they're doing is they're essentially saying your essential conscious mind is powerless and you need to, believe in God and all these things. And God is going to deliver you. And that's going to come through meaning and all of these things. But it's just such a roundabout way of doing it. Like it
is. And the success rate is 5 to 7% consistently for it's been well researched now. And that's the same percentage of success if you don't do anything. You just quit on your own.
The general population.
Yeah. So same as quitting on your own. But mostly it's like all the pain attached to it. And I'm sure there are some happy stories in the meetings and stuff, but people get pretty turned off. So the first rehab my son went to, it was Southern California, and I went with him, and then I stayed for the first evening's meeting. And this professional speaker from AA that travels around to all these rehabs, he gets up and he says, hi, I'm Jerry, and I'm an alcoholic. And everybody says, hi, Jerry.
Which is the first problem. Yeah.
And then he says, I got to tell you, it's been 20 years since I had a drink, 20 years. And he says, and every day I'm still just hoping to make it till midnight. I am white knuckling it every day. So what he did hypnotherapy wise is he future paced them, shared with them how it feels so that they would then have that as their belief. Yeah. That's a terrible thing to have to believe. And then he goes on to glamorize and he says, back in the day when the stewardess on the airplane had this cart that was full of all those little liquor bottles, I could steal 10 or 12 of them and I'd get so ripped. It was great. Those were the days. Oh my God. And I was sitting in the back of the room going, fuck, this is not good. Yeah. So that is what they're being taught. And I've been to a lot of rehabs to attend their meetings, and it's really sad what they're telling people. So another one that I was at, the director was going around the room, and to one of the guys, he says, okay, so you're a high relapser, right? And the guy says, yeah, I am. And he says, so when do you usually relapse? At 30 days or 60 days? And then he says, 30 days. Well, why would you want to reinforce that and make that be your identity, that you're a high relapser? It's stupid.
Well, that's the biggest problem I see, right? Like what you're talking about with identity, like that's the core of it, like if somebody's known as Big Tom for being overweight, it's like, well, you're no longer going to be Big Tom and you have to do something about it, and that's one of the big things that that's a big roadblock for people who want to lose weight and are known as Big Tom. You know, I think it's the same thing with something as a high relapser. It's part of your identity. It's part of who you were. And you literally have to pull off that part of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the things that I've heard from my clients that use the program, the addiction freedom program, like this one guy he had only quit a month earlier. And no problem. He quit. He had a big, whiskey, I guess was his thing. Big habit of that. But anyway, he was sitting at a bar at a conference in a hotel and he was drinking club soda. And he said, my friend came over and sat down next to me and she didn't know that I had quit drinking a month ago. So she bought me a glass of my favorite whiskey, waved it under my nose. He said, when I smelled that, I felt like there's three things that I anchor into there, which is strong and healthy and in control. And he said, when I smelled that, I felt strong and healthy and in control.
Wow.
It didn't affect me in any way. And I said, no, thanks. I don't drink. That was it. It's not meetings and sadness and horror stories and all the people talking about relapsing. It's like, that made me feel better to smell that.
Well, so take me through the process, right? So somebody's addicted and they're coming in and they have these triggers, right? And in their case, the most simple trigger is the smell of whiskey, obviously, being in a bar, like all of these things are crazy triggers. How do you reframe these triggers, which is also a neural mechanism? There are neural mechanisms that go underneath, but how do you do it just surface level, like via hypnosis?
We have to create the new outcomes, and we want to pack each of these with something that has a lot of just massive positive stuff. So there's therapy that we do to get rid of some of the stuff in the past and guilt and mistakes and all that. But this part is I take you into the future and I want you first to anchor the state of being strong, that you are a strong man. And I've always known that a strong man knows his mind and is able to make really good decisions. And you know that things that you've done in your life that show that you're a strong man are your validation that that's just who you are. And that's what feels good. So in this future moment now, just notice you have been strong for 6 months. You remember you used to drink a long time ago and that doesn't matter to you anymore, but you love the strength. And something that you just feel every day. Okay, so then we anchor in that word strong. And then healthy, taking you into the future and talking about your healthy self. You've been working out and your body feels so good. And when you look in the mirror, you just love yourself so much because this is who you are. You are healthy and you eat these good foods. So we build that one. And then in control, which is, pretty simple, that no matter where you are or what you're doing, there's something really interesting that will happen to you. When you see liquor or wine or somebody else drinking, there's a feeling you get that you're in control. It actually makes you happy to see that other people or alcohol, that it exists everywhere, but it just makes you happy because you're in control and you don't have to do anything to feel this way. It just happens. So then repeatedly in the program, like different types of therapy I do, I'm continuing to say strong and healthy and in control and embed that. So I was in the grocery store in California and this woman saw me and she says, "Oh my God, Wendi." So cool, which is really cool. Having people do that. So I grew up feeling invisible. So anyway, she says, "I quit drinking with your program." And she says, "Now when I go through the aisle in the grocery store where all the wine and liquor is," she says, "I feel like dancing. I feel so happy because it has no power over me. I just want to dance."
Yeah. Wow. So how long does that take, right? Like, is it 6 months, 2 years? Like, how many sessions does this take?
My addiction freedom program has a lot of sessions. The core of them is about 7 or 8 different sessions. And most people are doing it on their own with the recordings and following along. There's a workbook that you do some writing and stuff. So within a couple weeks, they can feel that good.
A couple weeks. So how long is the program itself supposed to last?
Oh, well, if you do the entire thing, it'll probably take you a month to go through it. But that's just like once a day. You wake up to a certain session, you go to sleep to a session, then you do a therapy session during the day. But
Okay.
some of them are not related to addiction. They're related to your lifestyle, who you are, your confidence, your dreams and visions of your life, releasing the past and letting go of things unrelated to addiction, just
Yeah.
so you can solidly be a better person.
Well, that's one of the things that, obviously I give you a little bait there, but one of the big things that I love about hypnosis is that it doesn't require 10 years like Freud suggested. It requires, for most people, if you're going to do a face-to-face session, it requires 3 to 6 sessions, nothing crazy. If you're going to do the self-hypnosis, it's going to require 1 month, and that's it. Like, then you're over it. Like, I remember Barack Obama stood up one day and he goes, I'm a smoker. Like, to this day, I'm still a smoker, and I spend all my days trying to fight off being a smoker. And it's like, come on, man. Like the best part about hypnosis is you could actually put that behind you. Like, so many people seem like they live a double life, in the fact that in a good way, like, okay, I live one life, I shed off that, we'll say, skin or whatever, and immediately became a new person. Never really see too much like friction between the two lives. And like, hypnosis will be able to do that.
Yeah. So when you think of Obama and him believing that he's a smoker and he can't quit, he's tried and he'd failed many times, probably, like all smokers do. And the only thing he has attached to this desire to quit smoking is failure and the belief that he's a smoker and that nothing will work. And so when you think about that, like, why would you want to try to quit smoking? It's attached to pain, and it's going to be really hard because all the cravings and everything. So you attach all this pain to something that you actually want to accomplish, and just like, forget it. It's not going to work.
Yeah. So
with a smoker, we have to find something positive and good that we attach to not smoking and letting go of the label. I know I used to smoke and it was really hard to quit. I quit a lot of times. I wasn't a hypnotherapist. So if we attach future visions and beliefs similar to what I did with alcohol or drugs, which is the things that you love about your life. Here you are running, you love running every day, and you never could do that when you smoke, but look how good this feels and what it does for your body and for your brain. And you just, you crave this feeling you get from whatever their, things are, and attach all these positive things to it.
It's wonderful. It's actually wonderful. Yeah. To be able to see, like, hypnotherapy is very good at helping people quit nicotine addiction, which is the hardest addiction to quit besides like heroin. And
that's what I've heard. Yeah. And after being a smoker for many years, a couple decades, I would agree. It was really freaking hard, but I didn't have any tools to quit. It was just me trying to quit in an era where everybody smoked inside and everywhere in every car. Yeah. And there were cigarette machines in the bars. And I was.
So on average, it takes someone 9 attempts to quit. And to call it a successful quit, that means quitting for 6 months. When if you look at the long term, that's not long term. That's, just a little rebound for your lungs before very likely you get back into it. It is.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? What I think now, and I teach my clients if they're smokers, is like, I don't think you're ever going to have to wrestle with this again. However, what if you slip up and you have a cigarette? What does it mean? It's no big deal. It's not a thing. You didn't go back to being a smoker. It's just, you made a mistake. Don't worry about it. Yeah. You're still committed. You're still not a smoker. Because what they do is they think, oh, damn, I totally gave up 3 months of not having cigarettes. Now I'm,
It's so counterintuitive though. So explain the rationale behind why you would say that as opposed to just don't smoke. Just don't do it.
Oh, because I don't want them to feel like they failed if it does happen. I just don't want them to feel like, oh man, that was $1,000 that I just threw away, because obviously hypnosis doesn't work. Yeah. And they know I'm not encouraging them. But you're going to totally be good. I can tell you're really solid and you've done the work, and I'm sure it'll be fine. But I want everybody to know that if that does happen, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, because I often did this. I used to struggle with well, I've been trying to fix my diet for years, and I used to have all these unhealthy snacks, and I grew up with all this so much unhealthy food, and trying to shed off that was such a problem. And every time I would take a little bite of something, I'd be like, well, I guess I'm doing this now. Like,
you open the box of ice cream.
Exactly. I guess I could eat the whole box now, because what's the difference between having one and having the whole box? It's just so easy.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. And I don't struggle with food issues. I lost some weight a couple of years ago, but I don't really struggle with food issues, just because it's like, if I want to eat a little ice cream, just eat a little ice cream. Don't make a deal of it. Yeah. I eat really healthy food, and I rarely eat sugar, and I don't eat any processed foods and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, if I had a snack, like, a bag, I have a couple of something that's chips or something, no big deal. That's all I have.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think one of the problems with like complete abstinence from something is it's very unnatural. Right? It's so unnatural to be like, never eat carbs ever again, or never eat added sugar. It's like, no, you know what? I'm a human being. Like, I could be able to, well, hopefully be able to go into the realm of like highly addictive substances, such as a lot of sugar, and not completely lose myself and just stay on track, have a pizza and not go crazy.
Exactly. Yeah. And if you approach it with that attitude that, if I have pizza, that's fine. I had pizza, and then I treat myself well to, all the nutritional foods and the things that make me proud of myself. And
so that's the question. So what do you do for those people? Let's say maybe the case is different for nicotine, right? Maybe the case is different for, if you take it to the extreme, heroin, cocaine, right? So for those people, is abstinence truly the method, or is it like, oh, if you do it, it's...
No, for drugs, any of the drugs, abstinence is the key. And well, like meth and heroin, those are, you just don't want to do it again once. And like,
of course, yeah.
With heroin, I wouldn't set them up for like, oh, if you accidentally do it once, no big deal, because it's just a beast.
Yeah.
So that one's a never again thing, because there is a thing with heroin that's just one more time, and then people die because their tolerance isn't up.
Yeah, it goes down.
Yeah, just one more time. And they say the worst day of your life and the best day of your life is going to be when you shoot up heroin the first time. And it's the best day of your life because it's the best thing you will ever feel. And it's the worst day because you will never forget how good that made you feel.
Interesting.
So it's always there, ready to take away all your troubles.
God. So does hypnotherapy work for people who are on rehab for heroin?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it's basically doing the same things. It's just building the person they do want to be, and knowing that they want that so much and they feel it so deeply. And plus, we're changing the cellular memory. When your cells die, it passes on its cellular memory to the next cell, the new cell. And so we need to now pass on some new cellular memory so that you're not filled with being a heroin addict or whatever it was, so that all your cells aren't just buzzing with like, oh God, I can't live this way. So now if we do enough sessions and some repetition, we get some of the cellular memory to start changing to a different, identity and physiology, and maybe not having cravings for any of the drugs. My first addiction client was a meth addict, and I had never worked with addiction. And I thought, wow. I've heard meth is really bad. Oh God. So and I didn't have a real addiction protocol, but his wife and two little kids, and he'd been kicked out again. And he said, they're never taking me back again, blah, blah, blah. So we did probably 6 or 8 sessions that he kept coming back to my office and stuff. And then I didn't hear from him. He quit the meth in the second week of our sessions, but he came back 6 months later and brought me this yellow silk rose and said, I'm back with my family and I have been clean for 6 months, and I'm absolutely positive it will never be in my life again. I'm just totally positive. And to get off meth.
That is number one in terms of like the ones that release the most dopamine. Get off methamphetamine. You're saying
And he did it.
2 weeks, 2 sessions?
Yeah. At the first 2 sessions, there was something that his brain just grabbed onto. Now these days, I would not do once a week sessions with addicts. Some of them come to me, and well, in Colorado, they'd come for 4 days and they stay in a hotel room, and I go to their hotel room and we work together for 5 hours each day for 4 days. Yeah. Because I get the whole thing. We just get everything done.
Yeah. Wow.
And it's really cool.
Wow. So it's more of a, you don't let them leave, because I'm surprised, right? He came back the second week.
Yeah.
Right? Like he probably did meth sometime between the first week and the second week, and he came back. That is magnificent.
Yeah. And people really feel like this isn't a scary experience, like going to AA and stuff and having to do all the things they say. It's so nourishing and it's so loving to be with a hypnotherapist who, we really care about people doing this work. We really do.
It's a very humanistic experience. That's one of the things. So you're actually, I've not hypnotized. I've spoken on my podcast to 3 hypnotherapists in the last 2 days. And the whole purpose was because I scheduled all you guys so that I could determine the patterns and similarities and differences. And first of all, you guys are all completely different. Like there's so much like differences between all you guys. I had Jeffrey Vilas, he's all about fear. I had Norman Pritchard, he was all about, like spirituality, tarot cards, all that stuff.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
And you're very like, super, you're more down to earth, but it's also a very spiritual experience, like going into someone's subconscious mind, healing them and watching them from session to session so quickly, like just completely change their personality, identity, who they are. It's like, that's.
Yeah. And also understanding the brain's neurology and how those changes happen so that we're doing them the right way. And I think that's one of my things that's really important, is that I'm affecting the brain properly so that it can make those changes. And then enough repetition from all different angles. So if I do, like I do a lot of NLP too, but if I do a swish session and you have the bad thing, the good thing and whatever, then also I want to follow that up with you meeting your future self and stepping inside the body and mind of your future self. So you're changing your neurology and the way that you think and behave. And then all of these things kind of get strengthening, like they're strengthening each other. So it's not just one thing where a hypnotist is like, okay, you're never going to smoke again. So this woman outside my condo, before I walked in here, she said, hi, how you doing? Whatever. And I said something, I'm going in to do a podcast interview. I've got to get inside. And she said, what's it about? And I said, hypnotherapy, whatever. So she goes on to tell me, says, I quit smoking with this really horrible hypnotist many years ago. And he was horrible. And he said all this stuff about the color red. And he said, you'll never want another cigarette. And she said, I thought that was ridiculous. And then I just didn't smoke anymore after that.
Wow. How
it was so funny because she didn't even like him. He said, I haven't smoked. It's been like 20 years or something.
Yeah, but it wasn't his fault. It was, I walked across someone on the street and they made me stop, of course.
Yeah. Well, she wanted to, she paid the money, and then sometimes, but it's still nice if someone is a hypnotherapist, if they give you other really awesome life improvement, that things that make you feel that you're a better person, that you have some things you want to accomplish, and they reignite your spark for life and helping others. And I
mean, that's part of it. Like part of it is like, so let me give you the alternative, right? So we were just talking about heroin. It's really funny. I had someone on my podcast the other day. She was, this was a few weeks ago. She's a neuroendocrinologist, something like that. Her name's Dr. Ann Prieto, and she's just so into the molecular biology and all this stuff and neuroplasticity. Yeah. And so she didn't run a study, but it's a very recent study where you take heroin addicts and you condition them so strongly for whenever they receive heroin, they see a cue for heroin, and then you give them a mint, right? They see heroin, you give them a mint. See heroin, give them a mint, right? And they condition them so strongly so that heroin and mints are so closely tied together that eventually every time they saw their triggers and all that stuff, the triggers to take heroin, they just popped in a mint and they sort of felt it. And there's actually neurological changes, neuroplasticity changes that go on within them. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And that's good. So she is changing the things that were held in the brain that responded to the triggers to start the cravings and make the physiology flood the body with the cravings, and switching that is good. And that's what we don't need a mint to do that, but the mint is helpful, so that it switches it. And that's, I'd say most of the processes with hypnotherapy, that's what we are trying to achieve.
Well, so that's one of the things that I think hypnotherapy takes a step further, which is that so I think, was it Simon Sinek? No, it was James Clear in Atomic Habits. He makes it really perfect. He says, imagine the inner circle, which is your identity, and then you have another outer circle, which is your outcomes, and you have your, mindset, and then the outer circle, which is your behavior, right? And you could go all the way deep into it, or you could just look at the behavior on the outside and all of these things. And I think the mint solution really just goes to the outside circle, right? Or maybe it goes a little bit inner towards the, mindset and beliefs and all these things. But really, hypnotherapy goes all the way in deep. It changes your identity. It changes who you are.
Yes. And that's what we need for addiction.
Exactly, right? And
I'm thinking the mint thing it's just Pavlov's dog, and, and it works, but long term, you still didn't change your identity or who you are, or what you believe about yourself.
No. It's a huge difference. I think that's the thing that makes hypnotherapy amazing. It's you could turn Big Tom into Tom.
Tom. That's funny.
Maybe there'll be something else special about Tom, but he'll no longer be, known for being overweight. That's
Well, I turn him into Awesome Tom. Awesome Tom. But taking people into their future, I think, is one of the most valuable things that I have done in my work. And I do it in so many different ways. So you may go to your future self and meet your future self and get some wisdom or some ideas, or say, what was it that was the most powerful thing you did in the last year that got you where you are? Mm-hmm. And then you get some ideas and wisdom from that, and getting inside the body of your future self and saying, what does it really feel like to know that a year ago you were struggling with heroin? Or if you were trying to come up with some brilliant idea for your business, now that you solved this problem and you came up with this solution that is phenomenal. And what does that feel like now? But doing these things, it changed the neurology, so we don't have to battle different things anymore, like being unmotivated or uninspired. And then you get inside your future self and you go whoa, yeah. Oh, I want to do this now. I got to get started.
Well, you know what? Okay. So the thing that amazes me the most about hypnotism, which isn't literally I don't find in any other platform or any other solution, is that you guys find a way to allow for someone to act out properly what they intend to do. Because you imagine, and this is just a, common psychological, mythological belief, is that we all have multiple personalities that exist within us. I have the person, whenever I, overeat, and there are two people that exist within me. The one who says, "Ooh, tastes good," and "Nick, you really shouldn't be doing this." And a lot of people vocalize this, especially smokers. You have smokers who are logical and say, "I really shouldn't be smoking," as they take their hit. The thing about it is that's two personalities at work. Hypnotism just does an incredible job. And I would love for you to explain how this works. They just make someone want to quit. They just activate that other personality. There's no other method, to my knowledge, that makes someone just wish and want to act out the personality of the I should.
Right. So a couple things you said about the personality. What did you say? To act out a different personality?
Yeah. Like that, the angel and the devil.
Right. So if we haven't built that personality, that person can't step into that. They're still in the personality and the belief system and identity of a smoker. So trying to just get them to quit smoking or whatever the thing is, we have to build that personality. And we're not building a false personality, but we're building all the qualities of that personality so they can find out what it's like to be that person. Wow. And for me, When I was starting out in hypnotherapy, I was terrified to even get up in front of my little Tuesday night group to talk to 5 people. And I got a radio interview that I had to show up at like 6:30 in the morning in the radio station in Sacramento. And I was like, I'm just going to cancel. I can't do this. Oh my God, I can't do this. And I said, wait a minute, you're a hypnotist and you're going to be talking about that. So I'm sitting in the car, and this is kind of this personality thing. How do we do this? I'm sitting in the car driving, and I'm at a red light, and I thought, I got it. I have been on 1,000 radio shows. I've done this in my sleep. I've done it so much. It's really kind of boring now. And I look over at the lady next to me who I'm at a red light, and I say, yeah, she recognizes me from my radio show. Yeah, she does. and I was just having the most fun with this. And I thought, well, I just got to do another radio show. No big deal. So what am I doing? I'm creating this altered personality that I've already done this, and I've done it so many times that it's kind of boring now, but I'll still do good. And so I told myself, because that evening I was going to cancel, I told myself that the moment I step in front of the microphone, I am going to get the biggest smile on my face and have fun and be brilliant. And this was me, coming from being terrified, but I built the personality thing, like what you're talking about. We have to build it somewhere. So now, I know it was just playing around and I'm not really that person. But when I walked in there and started talking, and I was in this awesome radio studio, I had the most fun. And I wouldn't have if I was sitting there if I hadn't done that to myself.
And you knew who to be. I think that's the best part. Like, when you say you take someone into the future and they meet their future self, like they actually know who to be. Like they have a complete understanding of that person. And wow, that's cool.
That's what you just said? Yes. How on earth do we know how we're supposed to be? And we do, because we're way more resourceful than we think. Yeah. But anyway, he kept me in the studio for 3 hours. I was talking for 3 hours, taking callers, all that. It was amazing. And it opened my life up to something totally different. And I thought, I decided to be good at this just for today, but maybe I'm good at it for real. That existed in me, but I'd never allowed myself to be it.
Wow, that's awesome. That's so cool. Okay.
And we can all do it.
Yeah. Actually,
no matter what you're afraid of.
Yeah, no, one thing I literally this is something that absolutely blew my mind. So you're sort of getting into your story, and I really love your story, like just how you got into hypnotherapy and how you became popular, and just the limits of hypnosis itself. Like you became popular for what? Breast enlargement and penis enlargement?
Well, right? I was broke. I owed a lot of money to the IRS. I had to make money somehow.
Well, I think that's the craziest thing. No, that's
so ridiculous. No, it works though. Breast enlargement is researched at Stanford and UCLA.
Which makes no sense. Like we don't.
I know.
So you're saying hypnosis, right? And like we're talking about discovering the limits of our brain, discovering the limits of hypnosis. You could actually increase the size of your breasts and your penis with hypnosis.
And it's a lot of people have been successful with it. Even the breast stuff had been going on before I got into it. Wow. And so there is research to support it. I have men who listen to the breast enlargement program who are transitioning, and they said, I've grown some breast tissue. They're not getting big old boobs, but they're growing something. And possibly changing their hormones and different things that make them feminized. Yeah. With the guys, this man named James Taylor, not that James Taylor, but of course I'm not outing him by saying that. I just think it's funny that he's James Taylor. He said, would you please make me a recording for enlarging me? And I said, no, that'll never work. Because I just was being honest. I said, I don't think this will work. And he said, well, would you do it anyway? I said, So I was already setting the expectation for him that it's not going to work. So I made a cassette tape because we only had cassettes back then. And It was like 30 minutes long. And he went on a business trip for a month. So he was away from his wife for a month. He listened to it a couple times a day, every day for that month. And then he told me that when he got back and he had sex with his wife, it was actually a larger girth and length, and that it was actually a little tough to get it in when they were going to have sex because he was bigger, and she noticed it too. And he said, but it's also bigger flaccid. The size has stayed. And months later, he still got in touch with me and said the enlargement is still there. It's still bigger.
That's incredible. Like,
I know.
do you know how that happens or what it does? Or
well, think about this. Like if you cut yourself, your brain knows how to send all the information to that part of your arm or something to create a scab, to make the blood coagulate, to start growing new skin cells, and to know when to stop growing those new skin cells. But it has to be able to do that, when you hurt a part of your body, or if you want to grow more muscle, your brain knows how to allow that to happen when you work out specific muscles. So I don't have any science to tell you about in this. It's kind of that same thing. Your brain does know how to increase the cellular growth of parts of your body.
Wow.
And even for men wanting to feminize and kind of grow breasts. And then some of them say, well, I feel like I have phantom breasts. So it's really cool because when I go downstairs and up the stairs, I can feel my breasts moving. And for men that want to be transitioning to female, they love it.
Yeah, like they could actually do it. It just makes no sense to me how impossible that is. It's so impossible.
I agree. I said, no, James Taylor.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
There's no way that it happens, but Stanford.
But it does. Yeah, it does. So what is not possible? Like how many things in our body can't we change? Probably if it involves bones, the bone is pretty much set for the size or the density or whatever. But I don't know.
Everything else.
Hair. The placebo rate for Propecia, which is a drug to grow hair that also makes you impotent, by the way, but it grows hair on your head. The placebo rate is something like 45%, that if you take the fake pill, you will grow 100 hairs per square inch on your bald head, even though you just took a placebo.
Wow.
How does that happen?
Yeah. And we just...
So obviously, I made a CD for growing hair on your head by activating the follicles and telling those follicles to wake the hell up. And it works.
Wow. We just don't know. It's just crazy how little we know.
Well, we're understanding it more and more, how profoundly our thoughts affect our body. So I had a ring many years ago, a ring stuck on my finger for a couple weeks. I'd been pulling and tugging on it. My finger was really swollen and it was getting dangerous because it wasn't coming off. I'd tried everything. So I called the jeweler. He said he'd cut it off. And just before I was driving over there, I closed my eyes because I was a hypnotherapist, I was new at this, but I thought I'll try this. I closed my eyes and I imagined that I went from my brain down inside my body, through my arm to inside my finger. And I imagined my finger letting all the fluids recede, the tissues letting, not swollen anymore, and all the cells returning the finger to normal size. So da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay, well, that ring's not coming off. So I get in the car to go to the jeweler, and I was just at a red light, and I unconsciously grabbed the ring and pulled it off my finger just like that.
It slipped right off.
It was 20 minutes after I did that thing at home, maybe. And it came right out. It wasn't even, I didn't even what? The ring just came off.
Yeah. Wow. I don't even know what you're suggesting there, right? Did your finger actually get smaller, or did the skin peel back, or who cares? The ring came off.
Swelling went down. Yeah. I don't know. We can guide our bodies to do some pretty amazing things, but if you just don't know that you can do those things, you won't try it, like growing hair.
Well, so that's one of the things that blew my mind, and it actually got me into hypnosis. So there was this story from back in the day of a lady who had multiple personality disorder, also known as dissociative identity disorder today. And this is a while ago. She comes into the hospital. Obviously, there was some problem with all of her dissociated identities. And she comes in and she says, holy crap, I'm struggling. You know, my diabetes personality is trying to get out. And they're like, what are you talking about? Like, what is happening? And she's like, test me for diabetes right now. I don't have it. I will switch to that personality. And if you test my insulin levels, I'll have diabetes.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
And that's exactly what they did. And that's exactly what happened.
Wow. Huh. So we are complex beings, I tell you.
Well, think about
so
it.
If your brain can switch to that condition and it can switch to another condition or another state of health, and think about all the things we can heal or change in our body that we're capable of. I had two clients that were for phantom limb pain. One was a lady who lost her leg in a motorcycle accident, but she still had the very real pain in her leg that was crushed.
Explain it, because I know people probably don't understand it.
Yeah. And so another was a man who had diabetes and his foot got infected, and it was just a horrible infection. So they cut off his foot. So people with phantom limb pain still have pain that is actual real pain coming from a missing part of their body. And it's very complicated, and they try to give people pain drugs and things like all kinds of stuff. And I had never worked with this before, but I discovered something. Oh my gosh. Your brain is sending the information to that part of your body to heal it. It is ferociously trying to grow cells and repair the tissues and the blood vessels and the bones and get everything back in order. And the brain is trying so hard to do that, but it can never get the message back that it's healed, that the job is done.
Yeah.
And so the pain is still alive in there, because the brain, this is what I think, the brain has to get the message back that the healing is done. It's no longer injured.
No, we know
so that injury is set in place.
Yep.
And both of my clients with phantom limb pain, it went away after we did those sessions, multiple sessions. But one of the man he drank a fifth of whiskey every night and took opiates every night so he could pass out. And we did sessions by telephone. And I think I only did a couple of sessions with him, and the phantom limb pain was just gone. Because we told the brain, you're done. You don't need to try to heal that part anymore.
Well, so there's a slightly different school of thought on phantom limb pain. Actually, one of the beliefs is when you cut off your arm, your neurons are sending stuff down to your hand, which isn't there, telling your hand to clench. It feels like you need to clench your hand like crazy, and it feels like it's always clenching, and there's so much stress that comes from that. So actually what some guy made, and you can look this up, this is genius. He invented this box. It's a mirror box.
Uh-huh.
It is. You put your arm that doesn't exist outside the box. You put your arm that does exist inside the box. And let's say it's your left arm. Your palm, as it faces out, there's a mirror that reflects. So it looks actually like you have two hands, right? It looks like you have your left hand. It looks like you have your right hand, even though it's just a reflection of your left hand. And what he would do is he would tell the people to wave their fingers around and move it around and all this stuff. And their phantom limb pain went away.
You know what's brilliant about that is that's what I did, but I did it not with a mirror. Because they're seeing their other hand with the mirror. It's okay. My hand's okay. It's there. It exists. So now the brain's okay with it. And what I did was, okay, your foot's there. It's healed. It's all better. Mm-hmm. And so the brain has the image, just like the mirror hand. Wow. Yeah. The same thing is happening. It's getting the message back to the brain.
Yeah. I'm surprised I never heard of it. I saw it in a class like years ago, and it's always stuck with me. It's genius. You're literally changing your neurology. You're changing your feelings of pain based off of the mind. That's
Wow.
It's incredible.
I had a client that the doctors had given up on her, but she was unresponsive for 2 years, and she lived in her house. She's about 55 years old, and her 2 adult daughters took care of her, but she couldn't move any part of her body.
Why?
She could blink. They don't know. She didn't have a stroke, no neurological problems. They couldn't figure anything out.
Okay.
So the girls had me come every week and do work with her. And I thought, I don't know what I'm going to do here. But so she's in this hospital bed. So I would just talk to her gently, by her head and stuff. And the first time I just told her this story that was to try to reignite her senses. Like there was this stream with this very cold water and she dipped her toes in it. And another time I was talking about her hands being Play-Doh, different colors of Play-Doh and how soft, because she was rigid. She couldn't move anything. It was all frozen. Wow. But the second week I came in, when I walked in the room, her eyebrows went up. 2 years. She couldn't move anything in her body. Her eyebrows went up. The next week when I came, she smiled.
Wow.
And then when I worked with her Play-Doh fingers, now they could move. And I said, here's the one that's red. And I would touch like her first finger. And I said, just lift that finger. And it would lift a little bit. And I said, that means yes. Now this finger, this is green Play-Doh. Now lift that one. That one means no. Now she can communicate. They can ask her questions. And they could. And then I got the rest of her body to get unfrozen. Mm-hmm. And then they could sit her up. And of course, this took a couple months to get this far because it was only once a week. It would have been faster if I could see her more. But anyway, they could sit her up and put her in a wheelchair. So now they can take her places.
Wow. That's crazy.
It was miraculous. I thought, I'm doing what the entire medical profession cannot do. Yeah. And then I saw her for about 6 months. And then, I don't know, maybe 6 or 8 months later, the daughter called me and said, she's in the ICU and she's on a breathing tube and they're going to take it out later today. And they said she'll die because she won't remember how to breathe.
Wow.
Because people in conditions like that, they don't breathe. So I went to the ICU and I sat beside her and I said, Martha, you and I know that you know how to breathe. You've always known how to breathe. And that when that tube comes out, you're going to feel that beautiful big breath coming into your lungs. And then I was talking about how when you were born, the first thing you did when you were born was breathe because you know how to breathe. That's always been with you. So this man walks in who's a nurse or something, and he's listening to us and he says very loudly, she's not going to breathe, she's going to die. Oh my God. And I said, Martha, we know he's an idiot. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Yeah. So she couldn't speak still. She didn't have language, but we had our little yeses and nos. Mm-hmm. So I did this 45 minutes or so of this, went home. And then a few hours later, her daughter calls me and says, guess what? They took the tube out and she just took this big breath and she's been breathing for hours on her own and she's doing fine.
Wow. Oh, wow.
And they were programming her to die because she was hearing them talk about all this and they're, all the dying. Yeah. All of the dying.
Oh, that's a miracle. That's literally a miracle. Like that is a miracle. So,
and the fact that I got her body to be soft and responsive. She could smile. She could move things.
She could communicate. Yeah. Wow. So what ended up happening to her? Do you know? Or
about a year later, she died. So she had about 2 years of really good quality of life after I worked with her. But even more than that, it was just, oh God, such a special thing to get to do, to be there with her. And it was about a 45-minute drive home every day, every time I saw her. And on that drive home, I was just, I don't know if there's a God or not, but thank you for letting me do this.
Yeah, like it really stretches you beyond, beyond your capacity. And then it also, like, that's a life right there, right? That's a person that you're literally giving up.
She was locked up for 2 years and locked up in her body. And it just took a story for her to be able to raise her eyebrows the next day. Was like, hey, and the two cats would come running from wherever they were in the house and they would sit on the bed with me and her every time because the cats would really dig hypnotherapy for some reason.
Your next study. Stanford, get on that.
Yeah. Well, we don't know that animals don't know our language. Our animals may understand all of our language. I don't know. I'm sure there's researchers that know, but maybe they do know and understand. And they're like, yeah, hey, dig this.
Wow. So maybe you should have charged triple on that one.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah. It was really great. It was an extraordinary experience. And every time I was coming home, I thought I want to write this stuff down, and I want to write the book called Mondays with Martha. And I didn't do it. I didn't write it down, and it's still fresh in my mind, but not as fresh as, what happened in each session. I still could probably recreate it.
Well, it might be the next project.
Yeah. To just inspire people to think about the things that are impossible, that you believe are impossible.
Yeah.
That maybe aren't. And this also has to do with what you were just talking about. Like, how does our body do these things? How can it shift into having diabetes when you're in a different personality, or all these unknown things? And I guess hypnotherapists, and hopefully for you as well, you set aside all that and you say, well, let's find out what's possible. Let's grow some hair. Let's make our penis larger.
I just think it's absolutely crazy. Like, I spent a lot of time in psychology. I spent a lot of time in neuroscience, and just the difference, like the absolute crazy difference between where hypnotherapists are at and where scientists are at. It's like, sure, maybe we have no idea what makes someone's penis grow bigger from hypnotherapy, but who cares? Who cares? If it works, it works. If somebody gets to live an extra year of their life and literally defy the medical odds, sure. Like, I don't care how it works. All I care is that it works. And this is what we know about. Well, I was telling you this before the podcast. Just there are two things that we know that will stop someone's addiction, right? Two things that we know that are very successful, and it's hypnotherapy and psychedelics. And both of those are just completely taboo, completely just accepted in our popular culture. Yet, who cares? Who cares? It works.
Yeah, especially with the way that LSD changes how things are functioning and what's happened with that, and with mushrooms as well, and different things. It is ridiculous that these things exist for us and that they aren't being used more. And they are. You can go to like Costa Rica or something and work on your psychedelics and stuff.
Exactly. But
the hypnotherapy is getting there. I did a ton of radio advertising, national advertising, and it was mostly about addiction, mostly about alcohol. And I was in your face on those radio ads. And it was saying, if you have tried and you have failed and you've gone to AA and you think you're still diseased and you're still an alcoholic, you are wrong. There is a better way to become someone who's strong and powerful and feel in control about your life. And I would tell them AA is getting it all wrong. And
well, that's my biggest problem. Like, why is hypnotherapy the last resort? Okay, I've done all the pills, I've taken all the medical treatments, and now I have to settle with hypnotherapy.
Maybe this will work. Probably not. But also some of the things, like, I made a bedtime story for kids, and I don't know. I just make it up. I don't write a script. I just do whatever's in my head and I describe it. So there was this wizard, and the wizard takes the child to this really cool place where the child has superpowers and does really neat things and stuff, and then takes them to this sleepy place for them to fall asleep. Okay. So it's kind of generic. The wizard doesn't suggest that they have certain powers or whatever. So this man whose son won't go to kindergarten, he says he cries every day at the door. He will not step foot in that door. And he just cries and cries and cries. And we've tried every day. We try. He listened to your bedtime story. And the next day I took him to school, and he said, bye. He said, where are you going? He said, I'm going to school. I'm going to kindergarten.
Wow.
And then I just get chills when I talk about these things. And then, they just struggled so bad. And then the teacher tells the dad, a few days later, says, your son is helping the other students who are a little scared of kindergarten. He's helping them to like kindergarten. What happened? And so then a woman came up to me during a break at one of my seminars, and she says, by the way, your Sleepy Kids session, my two daughters, they're in first grade and second grade. And she says they listen to this story at night. They have to listen to it because I like it a lot. So my daughters are terrorists at school. They disrupt both of their classes. They have different classes, but they just disrupt everything. They won't pay attention. They're making it hard on everybody else. At home, all they do is scream and fight. And it's a war zone all the time. They listen to your bedtime story. And the teachers said, "What did you do to your daughter?" And in both classes said she's sitting at her desk and she's doing her work and she's helping out and she's being very kind and being a regular student, both daughters. And mom says at home, my two daughters help me make dinner. They set the table. They help with the dishes. They're kind to each other. This makes no sense. You have two out of control girls that have probably been to every kind of therapist they can.
Yeah.
And they listen to a story about a wizard. But at the end, when the kids are falling asleep, I do say things such as, you really love your family, you love to help out, and you really enjoy, being kind to whatever. And they were just kind of generic stuff. But wow.
Wow. Well, that's one of the things that blows my mind. Like, there are people, and many people, that suggest that watching a movie, watching a TV show, all of these things, watching the news has no influence on the way that I act, the way that I think, and the way that I behave. Wow. It's like, I saw through that years ago, and it's just incredible. Like, the movies that we show our children, the things that we show ourselves, all have an influence on you, right? Like,
yeah, if that CD playing at bedtime can do that for those kids, then of course watching TV and all these other things have got to be having that influence.
Yeah, and it's all based off stories too. A big part of it is like, okay, I watch, I don't know, pick a movie. What's the most popular movie? Frozen. I watch Frozen. Okay. What are the messages in there? What are the messages that kids take from it? Are they good messages? Are they bad messages? And what are they learn? Like, there's so much stuff from it. And it's true. Like, it could be good or it could be bad. And a lot of it is really like hidden, because kids don't understand facts really well. They're all emotion. So something that they're learning from Let It Go, I don't know what they're learning from Let It Go. They're just learning from Let It Go.
Let it go. Well, there's probably a pretty good message in there. And maybe for some kids, it really has an effect on them in a good way. And there's some positive things that come from it. Yeah,
there's a reason why it resonates. Right?
Yeah. But it's just the things that parents struggle with their kids that are just like little Grant, he's 7 years old and he wets the bed, and the struggle that they've had for all those years because he's never had a dry night, and they try everything, and then they brought him to me to do some hypnotherapy with him. And after the first session, the next day, mom called me and she said, Grant wants to talk to you. And so she put him on the phone and he said, Wendi, this is the best day of my life. Because he was dry for the first time. The best day of my life.
Wow.
And the amount of struggle that parents go through with things like that. And we have this ability in our brains. And as you know, of course, all we have to do is change some of the neurology and the things that are firing off a certain way. And
you want to hear a crazy story? I just came back probably an hour before our podcast. I was at the gym, and I just hypnotized these two guys the other day, just hypnotism for productivity, focus, all of these things, grow your life, become better, and all of this. And I was at the gym, and for the first time, I saw one of the guys. At the gym, and I was like, dude, what the hell are you doing here? He's like, I told him a story about a dog who needs to be trained and needs to grow and all of these things. And he's like, dude, I'm a dog. And I need to grow and I need to train. And I'm here because I need to train. And his friend was there and he was like, what the hell?
Wow.
Like, who are you? And it was just so wonderful to see.
Wow.
Like, I hypnotized him on Sunday. It's Thursday. He's like, this has been such an incredible week. And his friend turns to him. He's like, you're right. You were so productive last night. Right.
And we all have this ability to do this, yet so many people are so stuck and frustrated because they don't know about this.
You just don't know about it. And there's a lot of so actually his friend's sitting there and he sees this, right? And he's watching all of this happen. He's working out, he's working out with his friend. And I go, are you in? You want to do it? He's like, I stay away from all that voodoo shit, I stay away. I'm like, really?
Yeah, because that's what it is.
Yeah, it's voodoo. He's like, I stay away from all that stuff. I'm like, you just saw that right before your eyes. And by the end of it, we got him as a maybe, I'm kind of into it, but it's how wasn't that a whoa, dude? Whatever he's having, I'm having.
Yeah. Well, and I think because I've made so many recorded programs, I think that's people's really low barrier to, getting used to it. I'll try it out. I'll just listen and see what happens.
Yeah.
And then they have some really big breakthrough and something changes and they get rid of some condition or.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I worry about. It definitely is very expensive to do hypnotherapy. There's definitely a big barrier that people have to experience. So a lot of people do free consultation, which is really nice. But the guy that I had on today, Norman Plotkin, he was, he's like, yeah, I do a free consultation. Then you have to buy 3 sessions for $150 each. It's really difficult to sort of, get into it to start to be.
Yeah. It's a big outlay when there's no guarantee, there's no money back. There's no way, if you're going to like that person.
Yeah.
And people do need to trust you. And I think you have that quality about you that people, I'm sure they trust you and they feel really comfortable with you. And I do as well. And I'm very fortunate that people feel like, oh, okay, all right, whatever you want to do, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's funny though, when I was broke and my previous business was 2 tanning salons and they were closing down because a tanning aspect in life was going downhill.
Yeah.
So I had an email. This is when AOL was our only email thing. And some guy sends me an email, says, I want to hypnotize women for sex. Money is no object.
Huh.
I said, yeah, right. Oh, come on. Seriously?
Yeah.
And so I thought I was going to press delete, but I thought, no, I'm going to ask him. But there was nothing in the email that I could identify who he was. Not even what country he was from or anything. So I engaged and asked him what he wants to do with these women if he does hypnotize them. And we just had several emails back and forth, and still he wasn't telling me who he was. And it came to more of feeling worthy of being loved and being able to really accept being loved. And he thought, as men, a lot of men do, they're wired to feel loved with sex. Those two are really combined quite well. So he flew me to Europe, first class, and I stayed in the beautiful hotel in Amsterdam, and he flew from Qatar.
Wow.
To do therapy with me for 5 days to help him not to get more sex with women, but it was about him feeling better about who he was and being lovable and
of course,
feeling worthy.
The deeper emotional aspect of essentially, you found the root cause when he just saw a symptom.
Oh, I did, and it was him as a little kid that some stuff, and I can't really expose it all here, but it's an amazing story of what we did, and
that was
much better his
Norman
life was.
Plotkin, he literally said in almost all of my sessions, I do inner child.
Yep.
That blows me away.
Yep. If we hadn't done his little inner child thing, he may not have gotten it.
God, what's my inner child like?
He's adorable. Come on.
I was a good looking kid. I was.
But you were. That preschool, you were the lady killer.
Yeah, of course. All the moms love me.
Yeah, but that one was a big one for me because he thought I was there were only 2 hypnosis websites on the entire internet in the world, and mine was one of them.
Really?
So that time, my 12-year-old nephew built me a 1-page website because you had to know how to code to do that. So that's how he found me. But Yeah, he didn't know I was like, having the IRS man knock on my door every day saying, got any money for us today? I was pretty broke.
Well,
but it was a huge change for me too, to feel worthy of being able to do that massive kind of work for someone who is an extremely important and very wealthy person. He said money's no object, and he was right.
Oh, well, that's like, it's just so, I swear, like, I was at the gym and like, this is such a wonderful thing. Like, it's so wonderful being able to see all the positive impact that you could have on someone just by 1 hour, just 1 hour.
Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah. Good times. Yeah. Yeah. Well, we should talk again sometime and, do a follow-up one with even more inspiring stuff for people to know and understand about their body and their brain, and, continue to expand on this, because it is a really important subject.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm so happy that you came on. Tell everybody, where they could find you and, where they could buy your courses, because I think your courses are incredible. Just tell everybody.
Yeah, it's at wendi.com. So it's Wendi with an I instead of a Y. So WENDI.com. And there you'll see all the information, and you can click on all courses. And then they're all hypnotherapy programs, but some of them have like some booklets or writing assignments or things that guide you along. And some have videos to tell you, this is how you're supposed to experience this session. And this is what you need to put into it, or it'll tell you how to get the most out of it and such. And there's hundreds of topics. And if you don't find what you want, just shoot me a message, and then I will help you find it, or I can make custom recordings as well. And I do work with clients privately as well. But usually we have a way of getting you to solve your problems with the recorded programs, especially the addiction work. Just,
really?
Quit your porn addiction too. Oh my gosh.
No, trust me. Oh, we could spend an entire podcast talking about that. Well, Wendi Friesen, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. This has been really fun, Nick.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Nick Lugo Show. Always make sure to check out the sponsors in the description below, and to like, subscribe, and give 5 stars, and in whatever way you can, because, well, I hope to spread this podcast and these episodes with more people, and you could help me do that. I always love to end my podcast with one quote, and this quote is my favorite of all time. It's by Viktor Frankl in his book, Man's Search for Meaning. Ever more people today have the means to live, but no meaning to live for. Think about that quote, and, well, have a good day.